Do you know of anything for quality of life for guilds or hideouts? Any changes that are happening that haven't been announced in that regard?
We haven't changed much stuff with the hideouts insofar as adding new decorations and so on. There's plenty of time to sort that out afterwards, to take a lot of the Act 4, props and to use them as decorations and hideouts. That's one of those things that we're totally happy to do after it's launched when we get time. And the guild stuff, we're trying hard to get more quality of life stuff in. Some of the guild stuff is quite important, like we got in the guild stash highlighting, for example, and I'm aware that people want item withdrawal logs and more membership permission settings. Some of those are very tricky to sort out. Like the logs thing especially is quite a large engineering task. So I can't promise any of those, but we do still have many weeks left of QOL improvements. And hopefully we can get some guild stuff in that time frame.
We already discussed the buy-ins for beta. What else we got here? Quicksilver's in town, please. Nice. I would love that. I wonder if that sort of thing is possible.
It potentially could be. It's just that then everyone would have to have a Quicksilver on in town, otherwise they feel at a disadvantage and have to swap it out as soon as they get to the exit. And then that progresses to, well, why not just grant a run speed buff in town? But everyone's zipping around and,
That town run speed meta. That town Quicksilver meta. Oh, damn.
Someone asked in chat, are we planning on adding an inspect feature to look at other people's characters in game? Actually, yes, we are planning on allowing you to right-click and inspect someone, though we haven't turned this on in-game because we're letting people have some time to set their privacy settings on the site if they don't want people looking at their characters.
Yeah, I noticed that a while back you guys kind of subtly added the ability to see other people's accounts. Like, see their characters and stuff, which for a long time wasn't, and that was like kind of like a, we want people to keep their secrets sort of thing.
It wasn't 100% intentional that we turned that on when we did, but it is on now, and I apologize if anyone's builds are revealed, though having said that, most of the people that had interesting builds already had their privacy settings set up correctly. And in addition, this is the time when, just before the expansion comes out, when there's less value in a secret build being revealed because of all the changes.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was privacy settings before I heard about that, so... What were the privacy settings for before, if not for that feature?
We had the privacy settings before to hide your list of characters and various other stats about your account.
Ah, okay.
So, a few years ago, I think 2013, it was introduced, you could see the list of someone's characters, which is obviously something that some people would want to hide. Like I want to hide the core character names that I have on my account, like a Nerf and Rayclast and various ones like that. So, the privacy settings allows you to turn that off, and now that you can browse people's equipped items, not their inventory or stash, of course, the privacy settings will control that too.
On the topic of quality of life further, and I've had a few people ask me this in the past as well, do you know anything about further further improvements for colorblind people? I know that in beta or something you changed some stuff for that, like the sockets and things, where it's some improvements, but anything more on that front?
The item filter stuff helps a lot with this, because colorblind people can set it up to reveal items in various ways, and I've received a lot of positive feedback from colorblind people in the beta saying that they love the change, and this may be enough. We've kind of got to a point where we have some colorblind staff members, and at least those people can currently distinguish the socket colors fine. Now I understand there are various degrees of this, and some people in the community still can't do, but to exaggerate the colors more is not necessarily good for non-colorblind people. It starts making them very, very bright. Yeah. So it's possible we can add settings for this maybe in the future, but I'm kind of hoping the item filter stuff helps solve most of the problem.
Yeah, I guess I'd second that. Give the item filter a go once you guys have a chance, and see if that solves it, and then I guess add feedback after that. If you guys do get in the beta, make sure to provide that feedback. Can the character view let others view stash tabs for the trading purpose? I know you guys were talking about in the one of the trading things that might come is the ability to have like tabs dedicated to trading. I guess is that sort of in any way connected?
It's, well, I mean, it's loosely connected, but it's still quite a far away. Like you'd need the ability to designate trade tabs as trade tabs, and there's questions about how many you have and whether they're a purchasable thing or not, and various other stuff we haven't even thought about the answers to yet.
Let me see if I can pull some more questions from chat here. Oh yeah. Any word on other events that you might be running after the 5-day one? I know you hinted at Cutthroat before. I know, and you did talk about the Raucous one, which was pretty sick.
Well, people should write in with some. Well, okay, let's rephrase this. By write in, I mean post threads on the forums and on Reddit about their various desires for events. And we're okay running multi-day events that we wouldn't normally do. Like if there's a compelling reason to run a 1-week thing that's interesting, we'll do so. But we have to be careful to not just jump into a week of something that hasn't been tested at that duration before. Like so many people are saying, run a 1-month Exiles everywhere. Well, we don't know if Exiles everywhere is fun for more than a few hours, right? It might be terrible after 5 hours, and then we're stuck there with a multi-day event. So there's certainly the need to build things up over time. We have confidence that this 5-day solo event will be interesting.
Yeah, it was a hard decision for me to not play it, essentially.
Got to win that beta access, right?
I was saying that I would try and win the beta access and then just burn the key in front of people just to troll. something like that. Yeah. Something horrible. Yeah, on that topic, are you guys for the top 35 or something, or it's 35 random people above 70, are you guys kind of going down the list if people already have beta access? I know a lot of people ask that. I figured that would be the case.
Our intention was to pick the top 35 and grant access to their accounts, but I can make sure that if someone already has access, that it goes to the next person instead. So that shouldn't be too hard to work out. So if, for somehow, the people with beta access decide to get together and spend 5 days trolling the community to take the top slots, then I'll make sure that the keys go to someone who's actually done well, who doesn't already have access to the beta. We're not doing it actually with keys. The intention here is that someone can't just go and get a key and then sell it on eBay. We'll just be turning access onto those particular accounts.
Nice. Yeah, I figured that would be pretty easy to solve. Some of the questions, you guys in chat are wondering why I'm missing some questions. Some of the questions really specific points of balance and things which Chris either might not know about or better to ask another question in that place. But yeah, feel free to pull any questions that you do spot from chat that I think might have some interesting answers. Yeah. Do you know of any changes that might be coming to Blood Magic? I know that's been a thing that people have talked about for a long time.
I can't think of any, but again, that's a good one for Rory.
Yeah.
I've kind of been. Previously, I'd insert myself into any design discussion, right? I want to hear what everyone's up to, every single discussed change for every keystone, and weigh in on the thoughts, but it's much more time effective for me to focus on other things for half of these, so I let the team handle them, and they do a good job, better than I would do if I was involved, so this is partly because they're more up to date on exactly the current meta.
What's your, for let's talk of management, zoom out a little bit, what's the plan for building the hype back up towards the end of the beta after kind of people have been watching streams and stuff for such a long period of time, or even playing the beta themselves for a long period of time? What's the hype up plans?
Well, that's a good question. We have some content like the unique items and challenge leagues and so on, which we pushing for release, and this kind of has to start once we know an actual date, which requires knowing how long the beta is going to go for, and we don't yet because it it depends how people receive the changes and whether it's working well and so on. So we'll probably renew contact with journalists and get some decent articles up about the final release, maybe with the journalists' impressions of having played through the beta, because they've been given access as well, of course.
Nice.
We'll of course get a countdown once we know an exact date, and any content that we haven't included in the beta will of course be available at release, so that'll be hype-worthy. Having said that, I would kind of rather get the content into the beta for the most part. I mean, I understand it's important to create hype around its release, but it's also good for people who are in the beta to get a chance to see most of the stuff.
Yeah, there has been a big peak of interest, even just for the beta, even though it's incomplete at the moment. I've seen lots of new peoples joining the game and checking things out, and a few people sticking around from that. So it does seem like there's been a bit of a pickup. I'm interested to see how this rolls, because this is the first time you've done an expansion pack like this.
Yeah, we're always keen to try new ways to release expansions.
On that note, how do you guys feel about, or what did you learn from like the way you did the announcements for the beta this time around?
I think that it could have been clearer that we were announcing it as a beta, but part of the issue is we weren't really intending to announce anything until announcement day, and on the day we were very clear that it was a beta, but people interpreted the things we didn't say or kind of talked around in the past, like, hey, we're adding loot filters in the next expansion, wasn't meant to be the announcement of a non-beta. It was meant to be the announcement that the next expansion includes loot filters. So people got very hyped that the expansion is very close, and that's of course our fault for not reading into it correctly. We should have understood that it was better to signal the beta further away, but we weren't entirely sure that we were going to even do a beta for the longest time, right? The plan was, small scale alpha, then release it, and it was only as the extent of the rebalance, zone changes, dual system, quantity of uniques and so on began to creep up that we realized we'd probably have to do a beta.
Oh, unique drop hype, Queen's Decree. Oh yeah, when is the next beta wipe? You mentioned mid this week coming up.
Yeah, it's very likely to be a few days away. There's a bunch of changes they want to make that requires fresh data on racing, as in progression data from people rushing through the game. I don't know an exact day. One of our goals tomorrow is to work out the scope of the change that is going to involve the wipe, and then set a date for that.
So a bit of planning and then probably an announcement after that.
Yeah, it'll be in a few days, I imagine. I mean, Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or something like that, New Zealand time.
Alrighty, cool. That's good for us to have a little bit of an idea of it.
Yeah, I understand. It helps with content and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Agent K asks if you have anything you yourself want to announce or say, or spoiler.
That's a good question. I didn't bring any material to spoil. I mean, I've been happy to discuss the divination card stuff a little bit. That we talked about a few points on that before. People are still asking in chat, so they may not have caught what we were discussing.
Yeah, that's stream of life, Chris. That's stream of life. You'll answer something, then someone new will tune in with the same question a minute later. You kind of just have to roll with it.
Yeah,
part of the package.
But there's been some posts on Reddit quoting what we were discussing there with the divination card.
Yeah,
stuff.
the news will filter itself out then. There's no point to go over things you've already gone over. It'll go up on YouTube too, guys. If you missed anything, don't worry. I'll put the video up on YouTube. Do you know if the new... I think this might have already been answered, actually, but are the new... You guys mentioned, like, Herald of Stone, Herald of Anarchy. Are they planned at all for this expansion, or are they just, like, far future things?
They're not currently on the list, but they're exactly the type of thing which have been sitting on the list alongside the skills we weren't able to make in the past. So I am sure they'll get made someday. It's just they're not currently the 4 or 5 that the guys are working on finishing up.
Yep.
Now this very easily changes, right? Like one day someone works out how to solve the particular problem that there is, then effects get made for it. It gets put in the game, some testing, it's on the beta ROM, then released. I mean, it could happen within a few weeks if people put attention on those particular skills.
Hedgie asks if we can be expecting the Steam MTX for PoE. I'm not actually sure what he means, but maybe you know what he means?
Steam MTX? I'm not sure. Assuming he means Steam as the game publishing platform, what MTX is that?
Maybe he means the ones that are on that platform that aren't currently on the game, like the ones that are exclusive for that.
Yeah, we can't release those in the main game. They were part of a promotion with Steam.
Okay.
But people, like, if you want to get them, you can associate your account with Steam, go and, do whatever steps are required to get them, which I think involves buying them on their market or something.
Yeah, it sounds like that was what he meant. Yeah, you have to get on Steam if you want those.
That's the thing with promotions.
Yeah, that's it.
So someone asks, when the beta is over, will there be a new league, like a 3-month league? Yep. We're unlikely to make it 3 months. We felt 3 months was too short. I prefer 4. Maybe it's going to be longer still. We'll work out a schedule for that. Kind of based on how these new leagues that we're making are good ones. Like, I'm very pleased with them. So it's likely that they'll be, have a decent amount of competition in them. Plus, given that everything's different now in Act 4, it's not the case that everyone just rolls Flame Blast, trivializes the content, and the league is boring in, a few months. It's certainly going to have more longevity to it due to all these changes. And so we will announce the league information as we approach the release of the expansion in roughly June.
Okay, that brings up 2 pretty interesting questions. I guess I'm surprised that you guys preferred the 4 months. I don't know. I thought people generally liked the shorter, the 3-month more. I guess what were your take on the 3 versus the 4 month? You prefer? What do you guys in chat reckon as well?
So the data, from a data point of view, the best one is when you don't announce the end. With our most recent ones, the Torment and Bloodlines ones, we didn't actually specifically say a date, and that had better user retention because people aren't, counting down the days when they know that they can stop playing. So we have, I feel that 3 months is too short for Path of Exile leagues, but it was appropriate for an era where people knew how to play, right? We didn't have that many sweeping balance changes in Forsaken Masters like we do here. So, player convergence on good builds was a lot quicker. Here it's going to take some time for people to work out what's even going on and, getting all of the good items. There's new top tier stuff to go for. There's all the jewels, we don't want to interrupt stuff too soon in the league. Maybe you need a straw poll on the 3 or 4 thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I apologize for spamming chat. Good call. Chris Wilson to the rescue, guys. There's the there's the straw poll.
You should throw 5 months in.
Should I just throw 5 months in? I had to keep the straw poll nice and narrow.
Okay.
I guess if you guys prefer longer, go 4. If you prefer shorter, go 3. We'll make it like that.
Unfortunately, polls have some major selection bias.
They do. I did a lot of statistics at university, and we talked a lot about that. What sort of what have been your experiences with that?
That they don't reflect actual player data necessarily.
Yeah, you get an interesting perspective because you actually get to see what people end up actually do. You get to see the difference between what they do and what they say.
Yeah. There are a lot of interesting things we notice when going through people's feedback. A very common thing for someone to say is, I have this problem, it doesn't affect me, but I expect it to affect other people. They assume that other players are worse than them or whatever, and that they, that they think this will be a problem for other players. And sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the poll at least is pretty, bias aside, is pretty well in favor of 4 months. I was surprised. I thought, my impressions were that people originally liked the idea of the 3 months. I guess that's where I got that from. It seems like most people prefer slightly longer leagues, which I guess goes with your data. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to know.
We had more complaints about us having short leagues than we did about longer ones. People saying, hey, I haven't finished my character, please don't put it in standard.
Yeah,
standard is in many ways an easier place to finish their character.
I think there's a general preference for a lot of people, even if they do want to work on one character for a long time.
Yeah.
Still to play the exciting new challenge leagues.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So we have it so that our hardcore challenge league dumps players into standard rather than the standard challenge league. So, for example, Bloodlines put you in standard rather than in Torment. And this was done so that Torment players, who are most of the players, like more than 50% play in the standard challenge league, so they don't have hardcore players just appearing above them in the ladder, right? So it's not that thing where some guy appears 2 levels higher than you, raging about how he's in noob league or whatever it is, and so on and so on. So we were planning to continue this, but it's being brought up, is this actually the right decision? Should we have it so that the hardcore challenge league players end up in the standard challenge league, meaning that there's more incentive to play the hardcore challenge league because you'll just get a standard challenge league character if you die, which is valuable, and it helps mitigate some cross-league trading issues potentially. So do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I can say some positives and negatives either way. I feel like my first impression would be that I like the way you guys have it set up now. I like that everything filters back to standard, and that the softcore challenge league is left untarnished by what happens in the other league, like that they are competitively separate. So
I'm inclined to agree that it's a more legitimate like challenge experience.
Yeah, and because it is like focused on the challenge, like I guess from like it would be nice to see more crossover. Like with the recent 1 month, we saw more crossover between the leagues. People trying hardcore that hadn't before, and people trying softcore that hadn't before or hadn't played much of it. I like the idea that maybe it would promote more people trying the other league, because they might, same idea with the core game. They'd be more inclined to try the hardcore if they'd end up back in the softcore 4 month as well. But I don't know. People are requesting a straw poll, so we can do a straw poll.
Yeah, make sure to phrase this carefully.
Yeah. What do we want to phrase this as? This is...
Should hardcore challenge characters go to standard... to a standard challenge league when they die, maybe, or something like
that? Should hardcore challenge characters go to standard challenge league when they die? Alright.
I do personally prefer how we currently have it set up now, but I'd be willing to try it for one set of leagues just to see how people, how people react to it.
How would I vote on this straw poll? I think I lean more towards no in this one. I mean, you could always just try it for one challenge league and see what people think. That's the whole benefit of you guys. I don't want to tell you not to try something. Like I think I'd rather you try it and see what people reckon. Looks like the vote's pretty close. I imagine it's going to be pretty close. I think you guys, if you guys are talking about it internally and are curious about how people would take it, I encourage you guys to try it. That's the whole point of the challenge leagues, is that you can try these crazy things.
The challenges, of course, would have to be designed around making sure that it's fair.
Yeah. And there would be a problem of like you getting more, like you'd be able to go in hardcore and then kill your character off and then get the challenges in the other league as well, just much more easily.
Yep. So that it would have to be designed so that it's not difficult to get the hardcore ones in that case, so that a standard player isn't at a major disadvantage by just choosing to do hardcore at the last minute or something.
Yeah, I would be curious to see you guys try it. I don't know, maybe not on this expansion pack one, maybe on a later one.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this straw poll is ambiguous enough in terms of the 50-50 split. The impression I got from standard was an over 95%. Sorry, the impression I got from the Twitch chat was a 95% yes, which surprised me. But it's fascinating to see the straw polls more equal.
Yeah, it is. That's a pretty good number of votes. It's pretty equal.
I should note that we don't make design decisions by going on ZiggyD's stream and doing straw polls with the people who are there. Like, there is a ton of argument in the office and data gathering. A second
disclaimer that this is not an official straw poll that will dictate the decision.
Yeah, but it is interesting to get some feedback. It's not something we've been talking about heavily for these challenge leagues. It's just an idle thought that is good to get an indicative measure on.
Yeah. No, I encourage you guys to try these things if you're curious about them. But my feeling is that I think it would be not worth it. Like, I think the negatives would outweigh the positives. But yeah, still be curious to see how it worked out. Good question. Chris asking me the good questions as well. Nice. GGG is not a democracy. No. It's a Chris Tatership.
Oh, we have a lot of people responsible for the different areas.
Yes.
Any creative decisions are Eric. Any technical decisions are Jonathan. Any business decisions are the three of us, with me kind of having power of veto occasionally, and it works out quite well. I put my foot down with item stuff. Jonathan loves to supervise the skill stuff. But other than that, the individual people who are in charge of each area basically have free reign, right? Like, Rory does a ton of the skill stuff. Carl does a lot of the general balance stuff. Behind the scenes, Neon Spider, Mark II is just calling all of the shots. That's him giggling in the background.
So you get the final say on items, though. You're like, no, I don't like this.
Unless Mark doesn't want it to be like that, yeah.
Someone's been asking about charges. Frenzy Charge got a bit of an overhaul or an improvement that is looking particularly strong. I've seen some pretty nice usages of the new Frenzy buff. Are you looking at the other Frenzies at all? Do you know? The other charges at all?
The guys are. I don't know what the status is though.
Yeah.
This is one of the things where there's 100 moving parts and I only see 20 of them.
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, Frenzy's always been the one that was a little lackluster and not, was much less popular. While endurance charges had their place and power charges were very popular.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it's just Frenzy that gets changed, which the changes to Frenzy, if you guys are unaware, I can show it here even, I think. Frenzy charges. Attack speed, cast speed has been reduced from what it was before, but now you get a more damage multiplier, which is global as well. So you can stack Frenzy charges and then have something like... so you can use Frenzy to stack it, and then you can have something like Infernal Blow, and that, the damage is increased by that. And it even works, apparently, with Abyssal Cry as secondary explosion, so you can use it to scale things like Chaos damage and stuff like that. I don't know how it interacts with everything, but it's a global more multiplier, so it should scale most things, which is pretty attractive. Opens it up for a lot more builds. Makes Blood Rage a little more popular, probably.
Yep, people are liking the changes to that so far.
Yeah, I'm quite fond of it. I haven't tried it out, but what I've seen from other people using them. Saw Xeno playing a... what was it? Infernal Blow, Abyssal Cry build that looked pretty cool with Frenzy charges.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to doing Build of the Week again as soon as there's some definitive beta builds coming out, because...
beta Build of the Week, cool.
Well, why not, right? Build of the Week is a really good marketing tool. It's just, a great way of showcasing
totally.
the build variety.
Here's some of the crazy new builds you might see in the new expansion, exactly. I didn't even think of that. Good call.
Yeah. It takes a lot of time to make, but it's worth it because it helps teach us how, how the players are building stuff.
Are you going to keep going with that, or is Bex going to take over?
The Build of the Week's actually been a team effort for quite a long time. So the way it typically works, like picking an average one, is I'll say, oh crap guys, we need to do a Build of the Week, it's already Tuesday, and they'll look at me and wish that I hadn't mentioned it, and then... So the first person in the process is Dan, who's one of our designers. So Dan will go to the forum and he'll pick a bunch of candidate builds, then he'll talk to Carl and Mark, and they'll work out which build they want to showcase. And once they have a build they want to do, they'll explain it to me, and I'll say, that's awesome, or no, we just did one just like this 2 weeks ago, find another. So then they'll show me how the build works, and I'll play it for a little while, and we'll get familiar with it. And then one of them will research enough to write a script. So they've now got really good at impersonating how I write the videos, which is excellent. So they'll write the script, I'll go through and edit it to make it more like my voice, and then it will get fact-checked by someone else to make sure that we're not got the wrong names for items, which happens occasionally when people are confused. And then I'll record the script, and then we'll get someone who's good at actually playing the game to record the gameplay part of it, which is typically Mark or Dan. So they'll record the actual fighting, and then I'll go through, or whoever has time, and record the showing off items and passives and stuff to go along with my voice.
Damn,
and then I'll quickly edit it up and get it posted. Bex has taken over the Hideout of the Week videos, but yeah,
she's doing an excellent job.
It's not just me. Yeah, it's not just me doing the build. I used to for the first few seasons, but it took like a day of each week, and that's not a good use of time really when I've got to like supervise other stuff and file tax paperwork and so on.
Woolaloo. That's a good question. You guys considering at all adding like a search option to the skill tree? That'll be such a good quality of life improvement.
Well, there's one on the website tree, but I think it would be really cool to have one on the tree in game as well.
Yeah. I certainly, now that we're in the beta and we don't have any like passive skill tree planners that we can use at the moment, curious as well if you guys are gonna give out API for that.
Yeah, we'll have to generate some JSON for the guys. It's just changing a little bit at the moment, but soon we will.
Fair enough. Yeah, not being able to search for like certain things and use those like tools that I've sort of come to use is like, well, yeah. It's tough. I realize how much I've come to rely on the skill tree planners for all they do. But yeah, I mean, another solution is just to get that API out there for the beta at least. But it would still be a nice quality of life improvement. Another good one is with the loot filter. This is the only criticism I have in the loot filter is that you can still pick up the items that you have filtered out. When generally, if you've created an effective loot filter, you shouldn't be able to pick them up. Of course, you could have them pick upable when you hold Alt when they all show anyway.
Yeah, we're working on some stuff to that.
Sweet.
The key pickup thing is has been relevant in the past, but it's becoming less relevant now with loot filters because, of course, you can set it so that you only see the things you're interested in.
Yeah, that'd be like the final perfection point of the loot filter. For sure. I know that's requested a lot, so you guys probably already pretty familiar with it.
Someone in chat asks, are golems meant to be PoE's mercenary system? The answer is no.
No. I mean, they kind of serve that function a little bit. Like, they're usable by a vast majority of players and can provide some sort of small bonus while giving you a little companion to come along with you.
Yeah, well, they're really good, and we're quite pleased with seeing some people not using golems, which is interesting because it means that they've chosen not to specialize in actually getting the golem well supported with good minion, passives and so on.
I know why you're saying they're not intended to be the mercenary system, because you've talked about in the past about maybe wanting to do a mercenary system in the future, so this wouldn't be like overriding that.
It's been hinted at, but we don't have any firm plans at this stage. It's just one of those things where, I mean, okay, so it's 2019, and we're working on the 22nd Path of Exile expansion, and what are we doing today? It's that kind of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys are feeling pretty good about what you've seen with golems so far?
Yeah, they're being used by quite a lot of players for quite a lot of reasons, and thankfully we're not seeing a complete, bias towards one particular type. We're seeing all three being used for various purposes. My favorite one is the Ice Golem myself.
Well, I'm gonna run that on most bow characters as long as I can afford the sockets. Though the sockets, it seems to me like I'll probably run that instead of cast and damage taken, maybe for some characters.
Fair enough. Well, I heard that cast from damage taken just doesn't work anymore or something after the auras. I mean, the auras changed to be.
I can confirm right here in front of now that I got a decent 4,000 players that I'm currently using cast and damage taken, and it made a big survivability improvement to my character. My method is self-casting Enduring Cry with higher level cast damage taken than what you used to run. I found 10 to be a good level so far. It's working quite nicely. I get a 2 to 2.5 second Immortal Call when it goes off, and it seems to go off when I need it, so it does still work. It's just not as obvious. It's quite possible
that we'll add a cry trigger in the future. I mean, it's space that we have now that we have war cries broken out, that there's a way of triggering them, so you can cry on certain conditions. Cry when stunned, potentially.
Cry when damage taken.
Yeah, it's amazing trying to find a verb for that, right? There's utter when stunned, war cry when stunned, who knows? But this is space.
No, please just cry when damage taken. I'll be so happy if you had that support. I mean, people have had this idea of cry when damage taken for a long time now, Chris. You guys are behind the curve, really.
By the way, when we deploy patches on the realm, people should not say, "What weird? It's spawning cats everywhere again." Because every time anyone says this in global, we all freak out in the office and go, "Wait, are the cats back?" And it takes a serious amount of checking to make sure
you realize you've just ensured that that's going to happen for every patch now.
It's been a nightmare dealing with the other cats back situation.
A cry when Tolman scream trigger, yeah. Cry on death. Oh man.
Well,
please.
There's a corrupted jewel implicit that has increased damage while dead.
Yes, I saw that today. That's a pretty fun addition. Although it's not a more damage multiplier, Chris. It's just an increased damage.
So you're gonna get like 10 of these, aren't you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm totally gonna build my character around having 10 jewel slots for damage after I've died.
Well, there are builds. And my second favorite build of the week was the cast on death discharge build. It had the awesome montages of just ramming itself into the bosses repetitively. Yeah, my favorite build of the week was the minion snapshotting one, because it's the one that we had to speed up to, respec the passive tree.
Cry when build nerf trigger gem.
Yeah.
Cry when Eldritch Battery isn't the same. There's so many applications of this. Oh, the cats are back in the beta. Oh.
Cry when timer doesn't pick you.
So many applications, Chris. It needs to be done.
Level 1, 1, 2, 1, 1.
Oh my god. Let me read Xcode's questions here. It's a little bit of a long one. Would Chris be in favor of creating an action script similar to a loot script that has been released already? A lot of players, for example, want mines to be reverted to their previous behavior, where you always drop them at your feet. Other behaviors, actions such as name locking, such as Cyclone, or not casting without forced standstill, such as when SRS is bound to left mouse bumper. There, left mouse bumper. Give possibly enough possible preferences here that scripting would be preferable. So the idea is, I guess, to make the exact way your character uses skills, now that there's a lot of different ways you can use them. Customizable.
That's very interesting. I mean, it's always possible to. It's getting a little niche, but then if our players are hardcore fans of niche stuff and want that, then maybe it's possible for us to do it. I'll talk to the guys. I doubt it will be a major priority in the coming weeks, but it could provide a way for really knowledgeable players to solve. Well, I mean, see, my concern is the item filter thing is okay because you can download an item filter that a community member has made. Like, he can say, look, here's all the items with the chaos and more, and provide you a filter, and you can just slap it in there. But the action script thing you're describing kind of relies on having a big list of your skills and how you want them to work, and that may differ from player to player. Or maybe it is something that could be copied and pasted between people.
Yeah,
anyway, I'll talk to the guys about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more niche than a loot filter, but I don't know, it could be an interesting thing. I guess that would be something you'd have to weigh up depending on how difficult it was to implement compared to how niche it was.
One thing we're looking forward to with the item filter is for people to filter out all the items and then say no items drop because there's, they filtered out all the other stuff. Yeah, I could just imagine setting the filter aggressively enough that you do a Dominus run and perhaps don't see anything if it happens to not drop anything that triggers your filter.
And then everyone's like, "This boss is loot as shit." I've been getting a little bit of that now that I'm running a loot filter. I'll be like, it drops nothing. So I just know that this time I only saw the good drops. There was no good drops this time.
Yeah. A change that we've been discussing, by the way. This is not meant to be an announcement. This is meant to be like musing out loud. How do you feel about the following idea? When you hold down Control, your 5 skill hotkeys that you've got that are the quirt ones swap out to a different set that trigger when you press Control on that key. So, for example, I hold down Control, then I bind one of the things to a war cry.
Summoners would love that, man. So I mean, that's a game changer for a lot of builds. Like, that's been a restriction that I've just accepted as a restriction, like as a game design restriction.
This is something that's been discussed a lot internally, and it may make its way in.
I mean, I'm not going to say no to that. I say yes to that resoundingly. It's just like I didn't expect that at all.
Well, my two questions here are, A, is the lack of slots actually an interesting resource? Because we feel that lack of gem sockets is a much better resource to manipulate.
It's kind of doubled
to have
up,
an opportunity cost with. Right. So assuming that you do want to have more hotkey slots, then is there a problem with the control thing? Like, as far as we know, control is currently used for quick selling, quick buying, and that kind of stuff. As far as we know, it's cool to have people to press control in combat to trigger these skills. Like, if you want to cast your golem, control R, for example. Is that okay?
Yeah, I can't see any issue with that, and I would love that. Like, there's often times where I'm like, I'm already limited by my gems, but then I'm like, I can't fit this on my toolbar. It's like I have some builds that have a lot of utility skills, and I can't fit this on my toolbar, and I know summoners run into that a lot. It seems like
these are the ones that you only use occasionally, like Convocation and stuff, I assume. I want to cast my Molten Shell or something.
Ones. Or just for quality of life of casting your auras. Without, like, look, this is the way I currently cast my auras. On this character it's not as important because I have some spare slots, but I click, I cycle, I mean, it's not the greatest way to cast all your character's auras. I've gotten good at doing it now, but it would be nice if I could just hold a modifier and then just 1, 2, 3, 4 cast all my auras. So even just for the simplest application like that, but for summoners and stuff, it would be great. Or support characters that run a lot of skills. I would love that change. I think a lot of people would love that change. Chat seemed pretty in favor of it.
Well, that's something we're discussing. Credit to this one goes to Jonathan, who thought of it.
Jonathan, you have my love.
Yes. He's a technical director and comes up with impressive QOL ideas occasionally. So it's something that we don't have a timeline for it. Like, we'd like to have it in during the beta, but there might be other things we run into.
Yeah. I could say there might be some unforeseen issues with it because you're adding a whole new modifier. And some UI design stuff that would probably need to go into that. But no, that's a sick idea. I think a lot of people would like that. Promote Jonathan. Request Jonathan Rays.
He's already our technical director and a founder. I don't think he can go much higher. We can put him on the streams instead of me. That would be awesome. No offense. I'm kidding.
Buy him a Pavlova or something. There we go.
Nice.
Seems like a decent perk. Yearly Pavlova.
I thought they were Australian.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
See, like 99% of chat isn't going to get that.
No. there's a vicious Pavlova rivalry between our countries.
Yeah. It's worth noting the item filter script thing as Jonathan's as well. We were struggling for ages to work out a way to do this with UI, and then, yeah, he had the brilliant idea of having scripts that people can share, which is, it's smart because it only requires a few people to actually have to go through the effort of going and working out exactly what eye levels are the ones worth a bunch for the current, meta and economy.
Yeah,
and then they can share the scripts.
It's insanely good from like a teaching point of view, and I also like that it's not an option in the game, that it's not an option. Some people will disagree with this, I'm sure, so I apologize to you guys, but I disagree with you. But I actually like that it's not an option in game, that it's a little harder to do, so that only the people that have a bit more of an understanding of what items are valuable will get it, or people will get a filter from someone else, rather than switching on a bunch of options themselves and missing white items, which are valuable.
Right. Well, that's like how certain things like decreasing the texture quality to 9 or 15 or something can be done through the files, but isn't available in the UI.
Yep.
By the way, people really shouldn't need to turn that down below, to the levels that they do. It has such a marginal effect.
But
anyway,
it might be a little bit of a placebo.
Yeah, well, that's that Quake 3 thing of wanting to like get a decent beast of a gaming machine, then turn everything down to look like soup.
I love this fight as well. Oh, look at all these champs, guys. So good. 3 waves of champs.
It's a bug that it's all magic monsters.
It's a bug, but I'm gonna love it for now, at least.
Thing is, the people who are fixing that instead just watch people die to it on stream, laughing maniacally.
I mean, this is the rebalanced fight. When it first came out, guys, this arena was way smaller, and it just constantly spawned. There wasn't like limited waves, and it was basically like no time between the waves. So it was just like a full arena. You couldn't move, completely body blocked. I was like trying to lightning warp. It was very, very loopy.
We almost got Moors with it.
Almost got Moors. It got me in Crawl a couple times. Oh, sorry, in Merciless a couple times.
Yeah, Moors was on hardcore though.
Yeah, I was mainly playing softcore this one. It's a bug. It's a glorious bug. Please keep bug. I think even though with the I've done like some XP recording and stuff of running that that zone. I think even with the bugged blue mobs, because that whole area is based on waves and it's basically time gated by you guys, you have very specific control over the amount of XP that people can farm there, even with blues. So I kind of like that it's like you're fighting an army of champions in that fight. It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
but,
it may be that they decided to keep an army of champions there. I mean, it's obviously had a lot of attention put on fixing stuff with it since it was initially released, so it may be that that's intentional.
I mean, I think it'd be cool to keep, since that whole zone can be gated by time so specifically, that if it's too crazy with the champ XP, you can just kind of like, make the zone a little bigger or slow down the waves a little.
Someone's asking for a team synergy build of the week. I like the idea. That's something that would be very cool. Though I doubt it will be one of the first build of the weeks we do with this.
Yeah,
stuff to
difficult to get that sort of thing running in the beta with smaller population and little trading. But there's more things opening up for that, certainly. Someone asked if you might run some events in the beta. I'd like to see that. It would be a nice way of testing in a more competitive setting.
We absolutely can run them. There is a problem, though, that we don't have a website for the beta that you can access. I mean, there is one, but like everything else, it's secret. So that means you wouldn't be able to view the ladder threads and so on, so you'd be kind of racing blind with just the /ladder command to tell you if you're in the top 10.
Yeah, fair enough. It would probably still be good, even if it was a little bit not as well supported. But it'd be nice to have some beta races. It'd be a good way to build some hype as well. With us streamers doing some competitions in the beta. Maybe for keys to give away or something.
That's interesting. I like it. Okay, so we have a streamer competition, and then the guy who wins it gets like 10 keys, and so everyone's voting for their favorite streamer.
Oh, that sounds pretty exciting. Maybe. Sounds pretty cool. Do you know much about Fire Nova? Like what's happened with
the Fire Nova mine skill?
Yeah.
That wasn't meant to be enabled, and in response to it being found, people are now working on making it good. So I don't know what the status of that is.
So is it making it stronger sort of thing, or making it... Not sure.
Last I heard, it was still quite a way away from being ready. So whatever, if they have changed it since it was released, then that's in the right direction. But I don't know that it's finished.
Okay, yeah, I've seen Pox using it. It looks pretty decent. So, but I don't know.
I haven't seen the skill being used myself.
Yeah, I'm curious what ends up changing with it then, if it's not finished.
It wasn't up to the we should show Chris the skill stage during its development when it was accidentally turned on in the beta, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks pretty cool though. It's a cool skill. Any chance on UI customization? I think you've been against that in the past, but I guess have you rethought it at all?
Well, we have chat size stuff now. You can make the chat window smaller, larger, and change its scale. Like specific things like that are cool, but we don't want to allow just a general move everything around in the UI. It's brutally hard to maintain, and action RPGs should be more about fighting the monsters, picking up items, than min-maxing where the UI is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very telling that in World of Warcraft you can do crazy things with the UI, and in Diablo 3 you can't touch it. And that's because Blizzard is right.
There you go, guys. There you go. Does the beta have more changes to late mapping endgame? Currently, so far, what we know about, I think, is that there's essentially more maps and that you've rebalanced what level maps are and things like that. Any other?
Yeah, we've inserted a bunch. I think that there are more options available for high-end maps. Like, instead of there being just 2 at the highest tier, there's actually more options. How many is it, Mark?
Yeah,
it's
at
least
curious.
3, right?
I haven't done the highest level maps yet, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Right. It's 3 at the very top and 4 beneath that, though of course the intention isn't that people rapidly get to the top and then just camp there. That's... I mean, the map system is meant to be, only rarely getting to play the absolute highest maps. But of course, people's expectations varies through time based on what the availability is and how recently we released Kato boxes and so on.
Yeah. Something I wanted to ask actually was a big thing about like difficulty and the time to 100. I know that you said recently that you weren't you didn't want people reaching 100 too quickly, like that it was getting on that borderline where people were getting to 100 in a month, and you weren't necessarily happy with that.
We'd like it to take a little longer, but we don't want to just numerically attack it. So we haven't at any point said, okay guys, less experience in this game, because that's a very negative thing to say. It's just slowing people down just for fun, right? So that's something we can reevaluate in the expansion because we're changing everything, right? If it happens to take a little longer to get to 100 now, then at least it's an entirely new game for this to happen in. So it's kind of the best possible time to reevaluate it. And we're not intending to add more player levels at this stage. A lot of people's builds are based around a certain number of passive points, and while you can get more passive points now, we don't plan for that to be, 20 further higher points.
Yeah, so far it's just 3 additional. Are there more coming later in the act? All passives?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question. I have no idea what the quest rewards are for the quests later in the act.
On the difficulty thing more, the difficulty rebalance has been, from what I can tell, to make the game a little harder or a little more challenging and tactical. Was that the intention?
Right. The intention is that it's both slightly harder and also slightly scarier in places. Like there are places where we're scarying it up that we haven't even finished scarying up yet. Okay. So we want it so that even if the difficulty isn't much harder than it currently is, there are certainly monsters where you fear they're going to do their thing. There'll be, like the canonical example here is Necros in the prison, where 50% of our development team want the Necros to be an oppressive nightmare of hate. So we'll see how this goes.
So my feedback has been that so far in the beta, I reached 80 much quicker because of the level rebalances and the higher started maps. Mm-hmm. So is it kind of like you reach like the non-level 100s, like 80, 85 faster, but it slows down a bit after that? Because that's kind of what you did with gems a little bit.
This would be a good question for Carl, I feel. He's very much in charge of this exact progression curve, and my expectation is that we don't make it that much faster to get to 80, but I suspect that inevitably it'll be a little faster.
Corrupted some reduced freeze duration. You can get some nifty little implicits on these things. Some of them are pretty cute.
Yep.
I like the varling to unique as well. It's an interesting new mechanic.
Yep. There's a wide variety of interesting Val jewels there. It's intentional that half of them are kind of bad for many builds. Like the one that, I don't know if this has been revealed, it must have been, but there was one that doubles your mana costs but give you a little bit more spell damage. I mean, that's obviously like quite bad. You don't want to double your mana costs because everyone is taking advantage of their mana as much as they can.
Yeah.
But there could be a build where it's not taking advantage of its mana and there's no way to increase the damage, and now there is. Yeah, but it wouldn't be corruption if there weren't some pretty bad outcomes.
What is
during design?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, during design, we almost had corruption just outright destroy the item a quarter of the time. Like, the first goal was that it does really push the item if you're unlucky, rather than corrupting and doing nothing.
Yeah.
And they had to seriously talk me out of that one, because I just loved the idea of it just destroying it. But eventually the idea of breaking the item so it can't be modified further, but letting people still use it, was the one that won out.
I always find the corrupted and nothing happens to be the most disappointing outcome. I prefer like a negative outcome than the nothing happens, but I mean, keeping your item is usually a bit better. But I'm usually in it for the science, so that explains that.
Fair enough. So what were you going to ask a second ago?
I've totally forgotten.
Cool. Sorry about that.
Pretty sure it was I'm pretty sure it was a question about Song of the Sirens dominating the fishing scene, and your thoughts on that?
Song of the Sirens is a good meta choice at the moment. It's like, from time to... It's this age-old question about rares versus uniques, right? The goal with unique design is that they're not better than the best rares. You gotta think of it like an 80th percentile rare. Song of the Sirens, like, the exotic fish thing, I suspect at the moment it's causing people to win fishing tournaments.
Yeah.
I would like to see a return of good rares.
I think, does that sound like, you mentioned the word meta specifically in regards to fishing. It sounds like that's a hint, guys, that some changes might be coming that would shake up the meta a little in the expansion.
So part of this is part of the reason that when we were designing the Maraketh rod, we chose the implicit that we did.
Yeah, I think that thing's at least gonna shake things up. Well, looking forward to winning.
Now I
some
need to go and
fishing
make
tournaments.
a Maraketh mode.
I'm looking forward to that.
How can no one have thought of this before? Maraketh rods, my god. Okay.
Well, it needs to happen now. Gotta dedicate. You're the item guy, Chris. Get on it. Get on it.
I can make this happen if I want, but is it the right thing? Should the power be used in this way?
That's an abuse of power right there. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that's a good time for us to end on. I'll let you get back to designing and managing the development of the new expansion, Chris. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. Over 3 hours.
I greatly appreciate the time, and thank you very much to the community for your great questions and for, tolerating my answers to the things that I don't know the answers to.
Well, you directed me to which people I should ask for those things, which I will do. So we'll get some cool info from Rory and Carl in the future, guys. So yes.
Right, well, we'll be releasing new supporter packs later this week, so hopefully everyone gets a chance to check them out and see what cool things they've got in them.
Awesome stuff. Alrighty, Chris. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Thanks again.
Alright, thanks very much. Take care. See you later, guys.
Have a good one. Alright, how awesome was that, guys? To have Chris Wilson on for 3 hours. Big shout outs to him and to the other devs who were tuning in as well.